I was 23 when a property manager in Columbus told me I could not rent a one-bedroom apartment because my credit report made me look like a financial criminal. I was sitting in my car outside Riverside Lofts, staring at the building I had already imagined as my first real home. A small kitchen, a narrow balcony over the parking lot, a mailbox with my name on it. Nothing fancy, just a place that proved I had finally built a life of my own. Then Harlan Price lowered his voice over the phone and told me, "Miss Mercer, you need to pull your credit report. There are things on it you should see for yourself." 20 minutes later, I was at my best friend Sabrina's kitchen table looking at 52 pages of debt I had never created. 5 credit cards I had never opened, 2 utility accounts I had never used, a business line of credit for $74,000, a vehicle loan for a 2020 GMC Acadia I had never driven, 9 collection accounts, 2 civil judgments. Total balance? $347,920. And every few pages, the same address appeared. 1847 Alder Creek Lane, Millbury, Ohio. My parents' house. My name is Elowen Mercer, but everyone calls me Wen. I worked as a junior data analyst at Buckeye Mutual Insurance, which meant I spent my days finding patterns in messy information. That afternoon, the pattern was my own life, and every line pointed back to the people who raised me. When I called my mother and asked if she had opened accounts in my name, she did not gasp, she did not cry, she did not even deny it. She laughed softly like I was being dramatic over a family misunderstanding. Then she said, "When family shares everything." I'd heard that sentence my whole life. When my brother needed help, when my parents said money was tight, when I was told my turn would come later. But this time, family shares everything was sitting beside $347,920 in debt. And by midnight, I would find out they hadn't just used my credit. They'd built an entire company under my name when I was 14, on my birthday. I didn't understand the whole pattern yet, so I went back through the report line by line because the only way I knew how to survive panic was to turn it into dates, balances, and names. The strange thing about shock is that it doesn't always feel loud. Sometimes it feels like your body goes quiet before your mind can catch up. I sat in Sabrina's kitchen with my laptop open, my fingers resting on the trackpad, listening to the refrigerator hum and the traffic passing outside her Clintonville apartment. Sabrina was still at work. I was alone with a credit report that seemed to know more about my life than I did. One bureau had let me in after the usual security questions. Another asked me to verify a loan connected to a 2020 GMC Acadia. I stared at that question for a long time because I had never owned a GMC Acadia. I had never owned anything newer than the old Honda I bought with campus job checks. The third bureau locked me out because my information did not match. That was when I understood there was another version of me inside the system. Older than me, richer than me, more careless than me. A version of Elowen Mercer who borrowed money, missed payments, ran a business, ignored collections, and left me holding the damage. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake, a mixed file, a wrong social security number, something boring and fixable. Then I saw the address again. 1847 Alder Creek Lane. I grew up in that house. I knew the cracked front step, the maple tree in the yard, the kitchen drawer that never closed right. I knew the sound of my father Gordon's work boots by the back door, and my mother Marla humming when she sorted grocery coupons at the counter. That address did not belong to a stranger. I opened a spreadsheet, because that was the only thing I knew how to do when the world stopped making sense. I made columns for account name, date opened, balance, address used, phone number, birth year, and status. Row by row, the picture sharpened. The same old family phone number appeared, the same address, different birth years, all wrong, all making me look old enough to sign, old enough to borrow, old enough to be blamed. I should have called a lawyer first. I know that now. But when the evidence points to your parents, your first instinct is not legal strategy. It is disbelief. So I called my mother. Marla answered with the cheerful, distracted tone she used when she was doing three things at once. I could almost see her in the kitchen at Alder Creek Lane, phone tucked between her shoulder and ear, wiping down the counter like this was any other Tuesday. "Mom, did you open accounts in my name?" There was 1 second of silence, not long enough to be confusion, just long enough to be calculation. Then came that soft little laugh. When family shares everything. I looked at the number on my screen again, as if maybe I had called the wrong person. I told her I had been denied an apartment. I told her there were accounts in my name going back years. I told her I was looking at $347,920. Her voice changed, but not into regret. It became careful, almost annoyed. "Your father lost work back then. The mortgage was behind. Landon needed help with school. We needed a temporary way through." Temporary. Some of the accounts were older than my entire adult life. She said it was just paperwork. She said she and Gordon were going to clean it up before I ever needed credit. She said I had always been responsible and careful, like that somehow made me the perfect person to use. I needed credit 3 days ago. That was the first time she stopped talking. Then my father took the phone. Gordon Mercer had a voice that could shut down a room without getting loud. He sounded tired, irritated, and disappointed in me for making him say anything at all. "Do not blow this out of proportion, Wen." I asked him if he knew. "Your mother handled the finances. I signed what she put in front of me." He said it like it was innocence, like not reading a paper before signing it meant the ink did not count, like a father could hide behind his own silence and call it being uninvolved. After the call ended, I sat there for a minute with the phone in my hand. My chest felt tight, but my eyes were dry. Crying would have made it human. What I had in front of me felt mechanical, deliberate, built. I went back to the laptop and searched Ohio business records. That was how I found Mercer Celebration Rentals, LLC. It sounded harmless, almost cheerful. Party tents, folding chairs, bounce houses, cotton candy machines, the kind of business that shows up at church fundraisers and backyard birthday parties. The registered agent was Elwin R. Mercer. The business address was 1847 Alder Creek Lane. The filing date was September 18th, 2014. My 14th birthday. I remembered that birthday with a clarity that hurt. A grocery store cake with pink frosting, 14 candles, Landon coming home late from baseball practice, me wishing for a new laptop because mine had a cracked screen and sounded like it was trying to fly away whenever I opened more than 3 tabs. While I was blowing out candles, someone was putting my name on a company. The original filing looked simple enough that a stranger might have missed what mattered, but the later records did not. Vendor credit, business paperwork, tax-related references, wrong birth years, enough to show me that someone had not just borrowed my name once in a panic. They'd kept using it until the lie became an entire financial life. Then I saw the tax reference connected to my Social Security number. I didn't have the IRS transcripts yet. I didn't know how many years they'd filed, how much they'd claimed, or where the money had gone. But I knew one thing. This was not only credit fraud anymore. This was federal. I printed the credit report, the business filing, and the first pages of my spreadsheet. Sabrina kept a stack of old folders for nonprofit paperwork, so I took one and slid everything inside. On the tab, I wrote my own name, Elwin R. Mercer. For the first time in my life, seeing my name felt me sick. Because somewhere inside the systems that decide who gets an apartment, a car, a utility bill, or a future, another Elwin Mercer had been living for years, and she had started in my parents' house. The next morning, the first collection call came at 7:06, before Sabrina's coffee maker had finished sputtering. I was lying on an air mattress in the corner of her living room under a faded quilt she kept for guests, staring at the ceiling fan as my phone buzzed against the floor. Unknown number. Then another. Then another. By the time Sabrina came out of her bedroom in gray sweatpants with her hair twisted into a messy knot, I had missed 4 calls and answered one from a woman who kept calling me Miss Mercer like she knew me. "We are trying to collect a debt associated with your business account." "I do not have a business account." There was a pause, the kind people use when they think you're lying. Sabrina took one look at my face and reached for the phone. "When? Hang up." I did. She did not ask me to explain everything again. She just poured coffee into a chipped blue mug and set it beside my laptop. Then she cleared half her kitchen table without a word, sliding mail, grocery receipts, and a stack of non-profit flyers into a chair so I could spread out the report. "You can use my address for now, for mail, legal stuff, whatever you need." I swallowed hard. "Sabrina, I cannot drag you into this." "You're not dragging me anywhere. You're sitting at my table." That was the first kind thing anyone had said to me since the report loaded. The damage kept unfolding in stupid, practical ways. I couldn't get the apartment. I couldn't put utilities in my own name even if I found another place. I couldn't finance a reliable car, which meant every commute to Buckeye Mutual Insurance depended on my old Honda starting. I had spent years being careful, and now I looked reckless on paper. By 9, I had 6 missed calls. By 10, 8. Every time the phone lit up, it felt like someone else was wearing my name and leaving me to answer for her. Sabrina sat across the table from me, watching me sort the pages into piles. Credit cards, utilities, vehicle, business, collections. "You don't have to decide everything today," she said. "If I don't decide, they keep deciding for me." She was quiet for a moment, then reached across the table and tapped the folder with one finger. "It doesn't have to feel good, it just has to be right." I kept that sentence with me all day. At work, I sat through a meeting about fraud risk models with my phone face down beside my keyboard. The irony was so sharp it almost made me laugh. I spent my days finding suspicious patterns in other people's data, but the biggest fraud case I had ever seen was sitting in my own backpack, printed on 52 pages. Talia Blux, a senior analyst on my team, paused beside my desk after the meeting. "You look like you slept in an airport." "Close." She studied me for a second. "Do you need me to cover the afternoon report?" I almost said no, out of habit. Then my phone buzzed again. "Yes," I said, "just today." She nodded like that was enough. No questions, no performance of concern, just help. That night, I started building the timeline. The earliest accounts went back to when I was a teenager, but the pattern made more sense when I put my family beside it. Millbury, Ohio, 1847 Alder Creek Lane. My mother, Marla, managing schedules and coupons and every dollar that came through the house. My father, Gordon, losing factory work and then drifting into warehouse maintenance. My brother, Landon, 4 years older than me, always somehow needing something right when the money got tight. Landon was the easy child. Baseball, homecoming, a smile that made adults forgive him before he finished explaining. He could break curfew and make it sound charming. I could get a 96 on a math test and still hear Marla remind me not to get full of myself. I was not rebellious. I was quiet. I liked order. I kept little notebooks of what I earned from the frozen yogurt shop and later the campus bookstore. Landon used to lean over my shoulder and laugh. "You are obsessed with money when—" "No," I would tell him. "I just like knowing where it went." He got braces. He got help with a used car. He got a college send-off party with blue and orange balloons for Bowling Green State University. When my 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. needed $200, Marla said it was not the right time. 3 weeks later, a new dining room set appeared in the house. "You will get yours when it is your turn," she told me. "Family shares everything." I believed her because children do that. They turn unfairness into patience because patience hurts less. I did not hate Landon back then. That's the part I still have to explain to myself. I thought he was lucky. I thought I was waiting. I thought every family had a rhythm and mine just happened to skip my beat. The next evening, I called him in Dayton. He answered fast, like he'd been expecting me. Mom said you were freaking out. That is what she called it. When I only know parts. Then tell me the parts. He exhaled into the phone. Mom said it was temporary. She said you were young and you would not need credit for years. You always paid cash anyway. My hand tightened around the pen. Did you know the business was under my name? Silence. Landon. I knew Mom used your information for some paperwork, not everything. That was not an answer. That was a hallway with locked doors. She said her credit was shot. Dad was out of work. They were trying to keep the house. You know how bad it got. I stared at the spreadsheet. And your school? Another silence, longer this time. When? Do not do that. How much? It wasn't like that. How much? Landon's voice dropped. Some tuition, some fees. Mom said the rental business covered it. Around $36,000, maybe a little more. $36,800. I'd already found the number in one of the business entries, but hearing him circle it made something inside me go still. While I was working weekends to buy used textbooks, my brother was sitting in lecture halls paid for by a company built on my Social Security number. Landon tried to recover. I didn't open the accounts. I didn't sign your name. I was a kid too. You were in college. I didn't know the whole thing, but you knew enough not to tell me. His voice hardened then, defensive and familiar. You're going to ruin Mom. There it was. Not, are you okay? Not, I'm sorry. Not, what did they do to you? Just Mom. After we hung up, the texts started in small, careful doses. Marla wrote, your brother is upset. Gordon wrote, we need to handle this privately. Aunt Lorna sent, your mother did what she thought she had to do. Dennis Mercer wrote, family does not call police on family. I read each one, then screenshotted it. I didn't know yet what would matter later. I only knew I was done letting other people decide which parts of the truth counted. At Sabrina's table, I opened the spreadsheet again and added a new row. Landon, tuition, $36,800, likely business funds. I sat with that line longer than any other, because that number was not just money, it was proof that my family had not only used my name to survive, they had used it to lift one child higher while teaching the other to pay quietly. The first person outside my apartment-sized circle who called it by its real name was Meredith Shaw. Her office was on the third floor of a legal aid building near downtown Columbus, the kind of place with worn carpet, buzzing lights, and a waiting room full of people holding folders like lifesavers. I had expected suspicion. I had expected someone to ask if maybe I had forgotten an account, or signed something years ago, or misunderstood what I was looking at. Meredith did none of that. She took the folder from me, put on a pair of thin reading glasses, and read in silence. 52 pages of credit report, the printout for Mercer Celebration Rentals, LLC, the vehicle loan, the collection notices, my spreadsheet with too many rows and not enough answers. I watched her pen move once, then stop. When she finally looked up, her face had changed. Not dramatic, not shocked, just serious in a way that made my stomach tighten. This is child identity theft. I did not realize how badly I needed someone to say that until she did. Not family drama, not a misunderstanding, not paperwork, a crime with a name. Meredith folded her hands on top of the file. You are going to need a report through identitytheft.gov. You are going to need a police report. Then we dispute with Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion using every document we can attach. I nodded because nodding was easier than breathing. And the tax issue. Her pen tapped once on the page with the business filing. That needs to be handled separately with the IRS if returns were filed using your social security number. This is bigger than credit repair. I looked down at my own name on the LLC paperwork. What do I put in the police report? Meredith did not soften her voice, and somehow that made her kinder. The truth. My throat went tight. You mean my parents? I mean the people the paper trail points to. I left her office with a checklist and the strange feeling that the floor had moved under me. I had walked in carrying a disaster. I walked out carrying instructions. There was comfort in that, but not enough. I was not ready to write Marla Mercer and Gordon Mercer on a police report. So that weekend, I drove back to Millbury. Marla seemed almost relieved when I walked into the house on Alder Creek Lane. She made meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans from a can, the kind of dinner she made when she wanted the room to feel normal. Gordon watched a basketball game with the volume too low. Nobody mentioned the credit report. That was the most frightening part. The house looked the same and not the same. The cracked front step was still there, the kitchen drawer still stuck if you pulled it too far. But outside, in the driveway, sat the 2020 GMC Acadia I had seen on my credit report. On the back patio, there was new furniture with cushions still stiff from the store. In the kitchen, the stainless steel refrigerator was newer than anything we had when I lived there. Marla had a blouse hanging over a chair with the tag still attached. For years, I had believed money was always tight, that there was never enough for me because there was barely enough for anyone. Now I was standing in a house full of things bought while my name sank under debt. The next morning, Marla and Gordon drove to the grocery store together. I waited until their car turned out of the driveway. Then I went to the garage. Gordon kept a gray metal file cabinet beside his workbench. It had been there since I was a kid. He used to keep tax papers, car titles, old warranty booklets, and appliance manuals. When I pulled open the bottom drawer, it gave the same rusty groan I remembered. The folder was near the back. Mercer Celebration Rentals, LLC. My hands went cold before I even opened it. Inside were bank forms, vendor credit documents, equipment financing, insurance papers, copies of tax-related forms, and the vehicle paperwork for the Acadia. Page after page had my name on it. Elwyn R. Mercer. The signature appeared near the bottom of a banking form. I knew immediately it was not mine, but it was not unfamiliar. The E had a high loop. The M leaned slightly right. The last stroke trailed the way Marla's handwriting always did when she was writing fast. I had seen that shape on birthday cards, school permission slips, scholarship envelopes she mailed for me when I was too busy working after class. My mother had written my name like a mother. Then she had written it like an owner. I sat back on my heels in the garage, staring at the page, while dust floated through the strip of morning light under the door. Then I saw the notary stamp, Colleen Rusk. For a moment, I could not make the name fit inside my head. Aunt Colleen, not by blood, but close enough that I called her that until I was 15. She came to backyard cookouts with potato salad in a yellow bowl. She brought me drugstore lip gloss for my birthday when I turned 13. She hugged me at graduation and called me sweetheart. Her stamp sat on the page that said I signed something I'd never seen. The betrayal got wider in that garage. It stopped being only my mother and father. It became a whole circle of adults who decided my name was easier to use than the truth was to face. I took photos of everything, slowly, carefully. Then I put each page back in the same order, closed the folder, and slid it into place. When Marla came home, I helped carry grocery bags into the kitchen. She asked if I wanted lunch. I said yes. I sat at that table and ate turkey sandwiches with the woman whose handwriting was on my stolen life. Gordon asked if work was going fine. I told him it was busy. Nobody looked directly at anyone for very long. On the drive back to Columbus, I did not play music. The IRS transcripts arrived 4 days later. Sabrina sat across from me while I opened them, her knees tucked under her on the kitchen chair. The numbers were plain, almost boring, which made them worse. Returns filed from 2016 through 2023. Business income under my Social Security number, $64,200 in 2018, $79,450 in 2020, $88,300 in 2021. In those years, I was a student, a campus worker, a girl choosing used textbooks because new ones cost too much. Later, I was an entry-level analyst, packing lunch because eating downtown was too expensive. The transcripts showed refunds tied to filings I never made, around $18,740. The bank name that appeared in the supporting records was Lake Erie Community Bank. Sabrina leaned back slowly. When? I closed my eyes. They used my name to lie to the IRS. That night, I took a notebook and drew a line down the middle of a page. On one side, I wrote my name, my credit, my future, my apartment, the truth. On the other side, I wrote Mom, Dad, Landon, Thanksgiving, being the daughter who sent her parents to prison. Sabrina read it without touching the notebook. If a stranger had done this to you, would you still be protecting them? I wanted to answer fast. I wanted to say family was different, but the folder on the table said family had already made me different. Different rules, different burden, different price. The next morning, I filed the report through identitytheft.gov. Then I went to the Columbus police station with Meredith's checklist and the folder in my bag. When the form asked who the paper trail pointed to, I wrote Marla Mercer, Gordon Mercer, Colleen Rusk. For Landon, I wrote that he had knowledge of part of the situation and had benefited from funds tied to the business, but I did not have evidence that he opened the accounts himself. I tried to be fair, even then. Afterward, I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried for the first time. Not because I regretted it, because no child grows up imagining the day she will write her parents' names in a police report. When I got back to Sabrina's apartment, I put the police report, the identitytheft.gov confirmation, the IRS transcripts, and the garage photos into a new folder. For the first time in any official document, my name was not listed as the debtor, the business owner, or the person who owed. It was listed as the victim. For almost 3 weeks, nothing happened in a way I could measure. The collection calls kept coming, the disputes had not moved yet. Marla sent one text asking if I had calmed down. Gordon sent nothing. Landon watched my messages and did not answer them. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, Meredith called while I was standing in the break room at Buckeye Mutual Insurance, waiting for soup to heat in a microwave that smelled faintly like burnt popcorn. "A federal investigator wants to speak with you," she said. "Her name is Audra Keene. She is with IRS Criminal Investigation." I looked down at the paper cup in my hand. "So this is about the tax returns?" "Yes, and the refunds, and possibly more." The meeting happened in Cleveland 2 weeks later, in a plain conference room with gray walls, a round table, and a pitcher of water nobody touched. Meredith sat beside me with her legal pad. Audra Keene sat across from us with a folder already organized into tabs. She was not dramatic. No raised voice, no threats, no movie version of a federal agent. She was calm, precise, and almost gentle in the way people become when they have seen enough bad things to stop performing surprise. "Miss Mercer, I am going to ask about the business, the tax returns, the bank records, the vehicle loan, and the notarized documents. If you do not know something, say you do not know." I nodded. She began with Mercer Celebration Rentals LLC, then the IRS transcripts, then the refund deposits, then Lake Erie Community Bank, then the 2020 GMC Acadia, then Colleen Rusk's notary stamp. Every section felt like watching someone take the mess of my life and stack it into evidence. Audra slid one document toward me. This is not only about credit repair anymore. I stared at the page. It was a bank summary, not detailed enough to teach anyone how it had been done, but clear enough to show where the money had moved. Refunds and business deposits had passed through accounts controlled by Marla. Payments went toward the mortgage, utilities, car insurance, furniture, equipment, and several expenses tied to Landon. My mother had not used my name once in a panic. She had used it like a second wallet. Audra turned another page. We also requested school attendance records for September 18, 2014. I felt Meredith shift beside me. Audra placed the record flat on the table. On the day Mercer Celebration Rentals had been filed and notarized, I had been at school. Full day attendance, math test during fourth period, a score entered by my teacher the next morning. I almost laughed, but it came out like air leaving a punctured tire. I got a 92 on that test. Audra looked at me, not unkindly. Then you were not signing business documents in Millbury that afternoon. That record did something the 52-page credit report had not done. It made the lie small enough to hold. On one side, a notarized signature. On the other, a school attendance sheet and a math grade. A child sitting in class while adults put her name on paperwork. The family pressure started the night after that meeting. Marla called first. Her voice was wet and shaky. "When, please, your father and I were trying to keep the house. You were too young to understand how bad it was." I stood in Sabrina's kitchen, watching rain slide down the dark window. "You made me responsible for things before I was old enough to understand them. We were protecting you from stress. You were protecting yourselves from consequences." The crying stopped. Not gradually. It shut off. "If you keep doing this, do not come home." For a second, I could smell the meatloaf from that last dinner, hear the low television in the living room, see the garage door with dust under it. Marla continued, "You need to correct the report. Family does not put family in danger." I looked at the folder on Sabrina's table. Family already did. Gordon texted 20 minutes later, "Your mother is falling apart." Then another, "We can still handle this privately." Then one more, "I signed what she put in front of me when, do not make me the villain." I screenshotted every message because Meredith had told me to save anything that felt like pressure. I hated that I had to think that way about my own father. I hated more that he was still trying to turn his signature into my burden. Landon called the next morning while I was walking from the parking garage to the office. "You are destroying us." I stopped near the elevator. "You keep saying us." "Because it is us. It's the family." "No, Landon, it was my name. I did not open those accounts. You benefited from them. I didn't know everything. You knew enough not to warn me." His voice sharpened. "You were always the one acting like you were better than everyone else because you kept your little notebooks and paid cash for everything." I hated watching people in business clothes move around me, carrying laptop bags and coffee, living lives that had not collapsed before breakfast. "You were old enough to benefit. You were old enough to tell the truth." He hung up. By lunchtime, Aunt Lorna had emailed me 3 paragraphs about how Marla had sacrificed her whole life for her children. Dennis Mercer left a voicemail saying family does not call police on family. I saved those too. At work, I tried to be normal. I built a chart for a fraud model, I answered emails, I corrected a data field in a claims report. My hands moved through tasks while my phone filled with people telling me to protect the people who had never protected me. Talia stopped by my desk near 4. "You do not have to tell me anything," she said, "but are you safe?" That question nearly broke me. Not Are they okay? Not, what did you do? Not, can this wait? Are you safe? I looked at my screen until the numbers blurred. I think so. That answer did not feel good enough. Colleen Rusk started talking a week later. Audra told Meredith first, and Meredith told me carefully. Colleen had admitted Marla brought the papers to her. Marla had said I knew about it, that I was busy with school, that it was just a favor between friends. Colleen had not checked with me. She had not called. She had not asked the child whose name sat on the document. She had chosen Marla's convenience over my future. By then, people in Millbury had started whispering. Paul Rusk, Colleen's husband, apparently had not known the details. Sabrina heard from someone who heard from someone else that Colleen had stopped showing up to church events. I did not feel satisfied. I felt tired. Then, Kendra Lowell called. She was 22, my cousin on Marla's side, still in community college and working part-time at a front desk. Her voice shook before she said anything important. When I checked mine, my stomach tightened. Your credit? 2 accounts I do not recognize. 1 store card, 1 utility account. I was still living with my mom when they opened. I sat down slowly. Kendra, listen to me. Do not accuse anyone yet. Save everything. Pull all 3 reports if you can. Call Meredith. There was a long silence. I don't think you were the only one. After we hung up, I made a new folder. Credit, tax, LLC, family messages, Kendra. I laid them across Sabrina's table in a neat row, colored tabs, dates, names, dollar amounts, signatures. For months, Marla had treated the truth like something she could soften at a dinner table, something she could rename as sacrifice or family or paperwork. But the truth did not belong to her anymore. It had records now. It had dates, it had bank names, school attendance, notary stamps, phone messages, and people willing to read them. By early 2026, the case no longer felt like something happening inside my family. It had grown into court dates, sealed envelopes, attorney calls, IRS letters, and careful updates from Meredith that always began with, "Are you sitting down?" There was no dramatic arrest scene, no agents kicking in doors, no screaming on a front lawn in Millbury. That is not how most real consequences arrive. They arrive through paperwork, through scheduled hearings, through signatures at the bottom of pages nobody can laugh away anymore. Meredith called me on a gray morning in February while I was sitting in Sabrina's kitchen, sorting another packet from Experian. The plea agreements are moving forward when. I put the paper down. For who? The main ones, she said. Iris Holloway is handling the federal side now. She wants you to know the record is clear. You were 14. A child cannot consent to sharing a social security number, a credit identity, or tax filings. I did not cry. I just closed my eyes. For so long, Marla's sentence had lived in my head like a rule. Family shares everything. Iris Holloway took that sentence and stripped it down to what it really was. Not love, not sacrifice, not survival. A child's name used as collateral. Marla Mercer took a plea on the central charges tied to identity theft and tax fraud. She received 36 months in federal prison, supervised release after that, and a restitution order tied to the damage done in my name. People think sentencing feels like a movie ending. It does not. It feels like sitting at a table with coffee going cold while someone reads numbers that still cannot hold the whole wound. Marla sent one letter afterward. The handwriting was the same handwriting from the garage documents, a rounded E, a slanted M, a trailing final stroke that once made birthday cards feel warm. She wrote that she did what she had to do. She wrote that mothers make impossible choices. She wrote that one day I would understand what it meant to keep a family together. She never wrote, "I am sorry I used your name." Gordon received 20 months. His attorney leaned hard on the same sentence Gordon had been hiding behind for years. Marla handled the finances. but the records did not let him disappear. His initials were on equipment documents. His signature was on loan paperwork. The file cabinet was in his garage. The Acadia sat in his driveway. Silence stopped protecting him once it had page numbers. Landon did not receive prison time. Meredith had prepared me for that. The government could show he knew parts of the truth and benefited from the business, but they couldn't prove he opened the accounts or filed the returns himself. He received 3 years of probation, 240 hours of community service, and restitution for $36,800, the tuition and fees tied to Bowling Green State University. He called once after the hearing. I did not answer. He left voicemail. "I hope you are happy now." I deleted it, then sat still for a long time. Happy was not the word. Happy belonged to birthdays, kitchen dancing, keys in a new apartment, coffee with friends. This was not happy. This was a judge finally writing down that what happened to me had happened. Colleen Rusk received 2 years of probation and lost her notary commission permanently. In Millbury, that mattered, not because it made her poor, not because it ruined her life in some dramatic way, because Colleen had always been the woman people trusted to make things official. Forms, signatures, small legal favors between neighbors. She had stamped a lie, as if my absence did not matter. Now she no longer had the authority to stamp anything at all. The restitution order did not bring me a check for $347,920. It did not make rent easier the next morning. It did not erase the months I slept on Sabrina's floor, or the calls, or the panic every time a new envelope arrived. But it gave me something I had needed almost as badly as money. It gave me a legal truth. The debts were not mine. The business was not mine. The tax filings were not mine. The cleanup took longer than people imagine. Equifax removed several accounts first. Experian asked for more documentation on the Acadia. TransUnion took weeks to update the business line of credit. Some collection agencies kept calling even after they had the reports. Meredith warned me that systems do not feel shame. They only process. So I kept sending packets. Police report, identity theft. Confirmation, IRS correspondence, court records, notary documents, school attendance record, restitution order. One by one, the false version of Elowen Mercer started disappearing. The 2020 GMC Acadia loan was removed. The $74,000 business line was marked fraud. 5 credit and store cards came off. 9 collection accounts stopped appearing. 2 civil judgments were vacated. My credit report went from 52 pages to 4. My score rose from 392 to 704. I stared at that number on my laptop in Sabrina's kitchen, the same kitchen where this had begun, and let out a breath I felt like I had been holding since March 2024. Sabrina leaned against the counter with her arms folded. "Look at you," she said, "financially boring again." I laughed then, a real laugh, small, surprised, almost rusty. A week later, I drove to an assisted living facility outside Toledo to see Nora Bell Mercer. My grandmother was 78, smaller than I remembered, with a pale blue cardigan buttoned all the way up and a tissue folded neatly in her palm. She did not ask me to forgive anyone. She did not say Marla meant well. She reached across the little table in the visiting room and covered my hand with hers. "You were still a child when they did that." That was all, and somehow it was enough. Kendra called later that month. She had started working through her own reports with Meredith's guidance. She sounded scared but steadier than before. I did not know where her case would lead, and I did not try to make myself the hero of it. I had only done one thing. I had stopped keeping quiet, and that made it harder for the next lie to stay hidden. In April 2026, I applied again at Riverside Lofts. Harlan Price recognized my name when I walked into the leasing office. His expression softened, but he did not ask for the story. He just took the application, ran what he needed to run, and called me 2 days later. "Ms. Mercer, your application has been approved." I sat in my car when he said it. The same parking lot, the same building, a different life. The lease had my full name on it, Elowyn R. Mercer. No extra explanation, no second signer, no apology attached to it. Just my name, printed cleanly above a line I chose to sign. Harlan handed me 2 keys, one for the apartment, one for the mailbox. The apartment was empty when I stepped inside. Sunlight crossed the floor in a long, pale rectangle. The kitchen was small. The balcony looked over the parking lot. The walls needed paint. It was nothing fancy. It was mine. I stood in the middle of that empty room with the keys pressed into my palm and thought about every document that had carried my name without my permission. Credit cards I never opened, a company I never built, tax returns I never filed, a vehicle I never drove, a police report I never wanted to write. Then I looked down at the lease. For the first time in my adult life, my name was on a piece of paper that did not take anything from me. It opened a door. If someone in your life has ever used the word family to make you carry something that was never yours, I hope you know this. Boundaries are not betrayal. The truth does not destroy a family. It only shows what was already broken. Tell me in the comments if you have ever had to choose yourself when everyone expected you to stay silent. And if stories about quiet strength, family betrayal, and the moment truth finally gets a voice matter to you, stay with this channel. There are more stories that need to be heard.